You've joined the University of Rochester's Multicultural Visitation Program. Tonight's topic is Minority Student Advisory Board, also known as MSAB, panel presentation and Q&A. By the end of our time together, you will have contact information for our university presenters. You are encouraged to reach out with additional questions you might have about the university experiences of our students, as well as the resources aimed at supporting them. My name is Joe Latimer. I serve as Assistant Dean for Enrollment, Diversity, and Outreach in the Office of Admissions at the university. I'm glad you decided to join this event. At this time, I'd like to hand the evening over to President of MSAB, Talia English.
Good evening, everyone. As Joe said, my name is Talia English. I'm the president of the Minority Student Advisory Board. Today, we'll just be discussing the Minority Student Advisory Board, and we'll transition into a student panel shortly, just to give you all information about what it's like to be a student of color at the University of Rochester. So I will begin sharing my slides for the event tonight. Okay, so starting with introductions. Once again, my name is Talia English. I am a senior at the University of Rochester. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm studying engineering science with a minor in sustainability. I'm gonna pass it over to my VP.
Hey everyone, good evening. My name is Mackenzie. I am a senior majoring in psychology with a minor in brain and cognitive sciences, and I'm the vice president of the Minority Student Advisory Board. I also work for admissions and I'm a tour guide. So later on, if you have any kind of admissions type questions, I can help you out the best I can with that as well.
Hello, everyone. My name is Epiphany Adams, class of 2023. I go by she, her, hers, and I'm currently a secretary for MSAB, currently double major in economics and psychology with a minor in statistics and cluster in ESL. And I'm also one of the panelists for tonight. I'll pass it on to our admissions chair.
All right, so our admissions committee chair, Alyssa James Anderson, was not able to make it today due to a family emergency, but just, snaps for her because she helped a lot with putting together the panelists and the stuff for this, this particular presentation, but she wasn't able to attend.
Yes, and our conference committee chair, Ruki Mani PV, will be joining us shortly, but they go by they, them pronouns, and they are class of 2020, and they're currently an E5 student, so they'll graduate next year. And I will just allow for time for our advisors, Mr. Cruz and Dean Burnett, to give their introductions.
Well, good evening, everyone. I'm Norman Burnett. I'm Assistant Dean and Director of the Office of Minority Student Affairs and the Higher Education Opportunity Program. And I have the pleasure of being one of the co-advisors for MSAB this year. Very exciting and intriguing organization that I'm sure you'll learn a lot from this evening. So it's my pleasure to be here. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. My name is Thomas Cruz. I'm a counselor, senior counselor in the Office of Minority Student Affairs, and I am the Assistant Director of the Higher Education Opportunity Program.
Thank you. So we'll go into the history of MSAB and who we are. So the Minority Student Advisory Board was established in 1999 as a result of a sit-in in Wallace Hall, which is the house of our financial aid and admissions office. In our preamble for our Constitution, it says, MSAB serves as a political, cultural, and resource base in the interest of historical, underrepresented minorities, and recognizing that there are certain areas of university life that can be enhanced through collective action, and believing that these needs can be best be realized by a formal organization. And the structure of MSAB as it goes is that we consist of a president, a vice president, a secretary, a conference committee, and an admissions committee. But we also have committee chairs and admission, and that's why we have a committee chair for the conferences that we have, which include the fall and spring leadership trainings that we offer for both semesters, and the admissions committee chair, which helps with us in our work that we do with admissions to get students like you into the University of Rochester. Then the purpose of the Minority Student Advisory Board. So the main things that we do, we have bi-weekly and monthly meetings with different offices on campus. and different deans and administration within the University of Rochester. So we have meetings with President Mangelsdorf, Vice President Mercedes Ramirez, and Dean Burnett, our advisors, and just different offices on campus. So I'll read out a few points about our purpose, and they are to maintain a political agenda in the interest of historically underrepresented minorities at the University of Rochester, to foster a positive exchange between and within member organizations, individuals, and the University of Rochester community, which includes our surrounding community, the 19th Ward, and to promote intellectual, spiritual, and social well-being for all representative organizations and individuals. And going into representative organizations, MSAB as an e-board, we are here, but we are a liaison between our affiliate organizations on campus and the administration of the university. So we voice their concerns and questions to the university administration that we meet with on a monthly or bi-weekly basis. So some of the organizations that we represent are listed here. We have them broken up into 3 categories, which are cultural, performance, and professional. So for cultural organizations, you may have heard of these. They consist in different chapters on different university campuses, but these are the university branches, which are the Black Students Union, which goes by BSU. They have an affiliate organization of their own known as No Disclaimers, which is a spoken word group. We have the Douglas Leadership House, DLH, the Multicultural Greek Council, the Pan-African Students Association, Spanish and Latino Students Association, Student Organization for Caribbean Awareness, and the Womanist Club. For performance groups, we have Indulgence Dance Crew and Exclusive Step Team. And then for professional organizations, we have the Minority Association for Pre-Medical Students, the National Society of Black Engineers, the Spanish and Hispanic Professional Engineers, and the Minority Male Leadership Association.
All right, in terms of some of the previous work that we've done, just to give you an idea of the sorts of things that we're involved with on campus. In the past, we've had a faculty of color reception where we've reached out to basically all the faculty of color and kind of organize an event to recognize them for their work, especially that they do for underrepresented minority students on campus, just being a sense of representation for them and also kind of mentoring them through their time here. Another thing that we were involved with in 2018 and 2019, that class year, there was a proposal from the Department of Public Safety to have some armed officers on campus. So MSAB actually organized a demonstration during Faculty Senate where we demanded a town hall where we could have DPS officers, administration, students, community members to all be able to just kind of voice your concerns about safety and just how that proposal would, potentially affect their communities. And this eventually resulted in the halting of the proposal. And they also convened a student advisory board for the Department of Public Safety. So now there's a variety of students from both the River campus, Eastman campus, Medical Center that are able to kind of advise public safety about all the sorts of things that they do. Right, and these are some pictures we got from that. So the one on the left, that's from the sit-in at Faculty Senate. So we had students come in all Black with different signs and things, and we were able to speak to the people in charge and demand the town hall. And the second one, we have our 2018-2019 President Tara Egan speaking at the subsequent public forum that we were able to put together. All right, and then one of our most recent involvements was actually this summer. So in response to the murders of George Floyd, Breonna Taylor, Tony McDade, all sorts of people, there was a group of students, current students and alumni that created a You Are Black Lives Matter petition, which called for a lot of different things like more recruiting efforts for faculty and staff of color, changing the student code of conduct to make racist acts a punishable offense, never arming DPS, and a lot of other demands. And then MSAB, as well as some of our affiliate organizations and students, basically drafted a second updated version of that petition called You Are Black Lives Matter Reloaded, and began attending meetings with the president and deans over the summer. And we've continued to meet with the administration during this fall semester to continue checking in about the progress of those demands and keep on applying pressure in that way. And that's just a quick image of the petition. This page is called Essay Impact. So essays are students association, basically like essay government. And they have a space where students can make petitions. And once it gets to a certain amount of signatures, they basically review it and can bring it to administration. So we posted both of the petitions on there to gather signatures.
And as you'll see at the bottom of the screen, for most of the slides, we have our Instagram and email just for our contact information. Transition in.
All right. So before we transition into our student panel and Q&A, we just wanted to give you guys an opportunity to, if you have any questions for our advisors, Dean Burnett and Thomas Cruz, anything maybe related to UMSA, any of the programs that they offer, or just general questions that you feel would be better answered by staff, to go ahead and ask those now. We have a Q&A box, you can put them in there, and we'd be happy to have them answer those questions for you. So we'll give you a couple seconds if there's any questions, allow those to come in. If not, we'll transition over into the student panel and Q&A portion. They asked, would you say U of R is very diverse? Sourcing, maybe you guys might have better numbers on that sort of thing if you want to address it from that angle.
Yeah, I think we're a pretty diverse university. We we have roughly, and I don't want to give exact numbers, but between 12 to 15% of our student body are underrepresented minority students, Black, Hispanic, Native American students. And we have a larger percentage of international students from all over the world, obviously. But we work very closely with the admissions office to increase our numbers of underrepresented students. But I would say we're pretty diverse, but we could always be better. And we're working hard to to go to schools and recruit students from all over the country. So I think I don't see the exact question, but okay, do you feel the University of Rochester has supported minority students in impactful ways? Can you give any examples? Well, yes, just having an Office of Minority Student Affairs is one example. We've been around since the early or late 60s, and we've we have a whole range of programs that support underrepresented students. For me personally, and I'll let Mr. Cruz answer it, we have a graduation rate that's probably 75, 80% of our underrepresented students graduate. And we, some years better, some years worse, but we have a program where we have advisors who help recruit students, and we work with students from first year as freshmen, as first year students to seniors until they graduate. So we try to be there. We try to be a culturally competent office. We try to, understand students both inside the classroom and outside the classroom. In UMSA, for example, we all serve as undergraduate advisors, so we're very knowledgeable of the curriculum, but also equally as knowledgeable that it's important to be involved in activities outside of the classroom. And we know that there are a whole range of things that happen that impact student success, and a lot of those happen outside the classroom. So we try to be there to support students. There are other offices to the David T. Kern Center that's there to work exclusively with first generation, college students. We're involved in our local community here in Rochester, in the school district, and trying to recruit and be mentors for students in the Rochester community. So I think, and probably all equally as important, that we do university does contribute a lot of financial aid to students to make sure that, or at least to try our best to make sure that financial barriers are eliminated, that finances are not an issue for a student might leave or can't come. And so we also are very proud of the Higher Education Opportunity Program, which we were one of the founding institutions where we have students who come from low-income family situations, but are also scholars and matter of fact, that program, our students graduate at about 90% of the students graduate in that program. So kudos to HEOP. So we can answer some other questions later, but I think to answer your question, I think it's impactful, and as long as students are graduating and we have actually lastly a robust group of alums who graduate who are just fantastic, and they're doing wonderful things all across the country. They're going to graduate school. They're in all kinds of employment opportunities. So I think we're, it's impactful in that we try to guide students from first-year students right through to graduation. I don't know, Mr. Cruz, anything you want to add to that?
I think you hit it all. Our students are thriving. The environment that they're in allows for systems to be challenged. MSAB is very intricate in that because they're the only group that literally meets directly with the president. So because of that, they're able to constantly challenge things, the status quo of the university, to make sure that it meets the needs of all of our students. And so with that, yes, we are diverse, but as Dean Burnett said, we could be even more diverse. And it's a constant struggle to constantly work towards that. But the university is committed to it. Admissions is committed to it. Student leaders are committed to it. Faculty and staff are just as committed to it as well. So it's a thing that our mantra is ameliorar, always better. And we are always striving to be better in that area.
Thank you for that. And now we'll just transition into our student panelists for the evening. So I'll segue over to Ricky.
Hi everyone, my name is Ruki. So I'll be conducting our student panelist discussion today. So Mackenzie had given a brief overview of how things will work. So you will see at the bottom of your screen, you have a Q&A. So feel free to just type in questions as we're speaking, and then we'll either do all the questions towards the end or we'll interweave the questions as they go along. If you can't figure out how that works, you can always just put it into the chat as well. So we can start and begin introducing our panelists. We have 4 people present today. I looked at the pronunciations of people's names, but please say your name again in case it's mispronounced. But we have Brian Yagela, who's class of 2021. Each of you, if you want to give yourself a brief introduction of your hometown major and maybe things you're involved in at school. So Brian, if you want to begin.
Yeah, no problems. Thank you. Yeah, my name is Brian Yagela, guys. Currently a senior at the U of R, studying chemical engineering. And my cluster is in French, which is a part of modern languages and culture. I'm from Dar es Salaam, Tanzania, which is located in Eastern Africa. And yeah, that's about it.
That sounds awesome. The next person we have is Ruth Agwaze. Also, if I mispronounced your name, please forgive me. If you want to give yourself a brief introduction as well, Ruth.
Hi everyone, I'm Ruth. I'm a junior. My pronouns are she, her, hers. I'm from Calgary, Canada, so that's located in Western Canada. My majors are neuroscience and psychology, and I'm minoring in philosophy, and I'm also a Rochester early medical scholar. So I'm on the pre-med track.
Awesome. We can go to the next slide. Our third panelist today is Epiphany Adams. Epiphany, as you also know, is also on the e-board of MSAB. Epiphany?
Hello again, my name is Epiphany Adams, class of 2023. She, her, hers are my pronouns. So I am originally from, if you cannot tell, New York City, period, specifically Harlem. My majors are economics and psychology with a minor in statistics and a cluster in American Sign Language. Currently, I'm an HOP scholar, which stands for Higher Education Opportunity Program. So I'm gonna be one of those graduates in 2023, period. And I'm also a current scholar, and we're not done yet. I'm also part of NSBE, which stands for National Society of Black Engineers, and I act as the Academic Excellence Chair. And I am Secretary for the Minority Student Advisory Board. That's half of what I do. There's more. We can talk about that
Period. And then our last person is Brendan Spinks. Brendan, if you also want to give yourself a brief intro.
Hello, I'm Brendan Spinks. I'm from Rochester, New York. Yeah, pretty close, down the street. My major is health policy, and I participate in the Early Connection Opportunity program, which happens over the summer.
Awesome. And then just so everyone knows, my pronouns are they, them for anybody that's watching that's also genderqueer. We don't know like who the participants are. We can't necessarily see. But we have a list of questions today that we've put together to ask our panelists. So panelists, basically, you're welcome to just chime in after I like state a question and then just say like your feedback. Be as honest as possible. They're relating to like your experience at the U of R. So we can go to the next slide. So the first question we have today is, what had made you choose the University of Rochester? I can give you all like a second to think and then feel free to
I'll
just.
go first because I love this question so much. Talia, ready now? We out here. So University of Rochester was actually my very last choice, ironically. And we had a council, well, me and Talia went to the same high school, Freddie Douglass Academy, but what? And we had a visit with our counselor to the University of Rochester. He like just snuck us in because he's just that guy. And Talia was also my host. And at the time she was living in the Douglass Leadership House, AKA the DLH. And when Talia first met me, I did not want to talk. I didn't go anywhere. I stayed in her room like majority of the time, slept in her chair, everything. So I like came at the perfect time when they were having DLH elections. And just like hearing everybody's story about how they got to U of R, what it means to be a minority student at the U of R, the things they're doing to make an impact on campus. I wanted to do that. And I felt so welcome at the DLH. Oh my God. And as shy as I felt so welcomed. I remember Talia came in her room and I was like watching this YouTuber called Markiplier. And I was like, oh, I'm sorry. Like, I'll turn it off. And she was like, no, don't turn it off. I didn't know you watched him. And like Ivana came. She was like, she's a Markiplier fan. And she was like, yeah, we were just all up in there for like 2 hours just watching the show. And it felt so nice to finally find people like me who are Black, cool, nerds, and everything. It was such a nice feeling. So that after that, I was like, you know what? I'm going to commit. And Talia and Kennedy made sure they text me when they were like, you better tell us when you commit. And they were the first people I told that I committed to U of R. So thank the DLH. That's why I'm here. That's one period.
That's like a very insightful response. Brian, Ruth, Brendan, do you all have anything else to add?
I can say something from the perspective of like being like an international student. Like when I was applying, I like just for me, like from my background and from my upbringing, like I just wanted to apply to the school that gave me the like biggest package when it came to like just financial support. So when I applied, like it was between like this school and like 2 other schools that like had better programs within the field that I'm studying. But the great part of it was that like one of my best friends was applying here as well. So and we're from the same country. And it kind of felt like it would be nice to kind of like apply as well, just as like a backup. And I applied and I got in. And the thing is, when like I started like looking up the school, I started contacting people from the school. They were like very like helpful, and I started like looking up the people that currently went there, and like were like the people who like, for example, come from the same backgrounds as me, like from the African continent. And I really came through like that realization that there was so many other like African students here that were also going to the U of R. So what we did was we made like a group chat before we got here, and like I got to talk to everyone, and it was actually like as Epiphany said, it was like welcoming to see like I had like an environment where like everybody was also kind of had the same type of excitement as me, also had like the same type of like drive and same type of like reason as to why we're like pursuing this as me. And that was like for me like something that really made like me realize that this was like the best choice for me. So I mean I really appreciate it. And like right now I'm like currently the president of the Pan African Students Association. That's been like such a great experience. Working alongside all the MSAB organizations, coming here and realizing that Pan-Africanism doesn't just span on the continent, it spans all across the world. And seeing everybody like committed to the same cause, that was something that like really kind of like made me realize that my time here was worth it.
Brian, and then just to clarify, you study chemical engineering, right? The programs we're talking about?
Yeah, I study chemical engineering. Yeah. So like that's just like the nerdy part of it. I really like my math and my science. So like when I came here, my like goal was to like kind of like go into energy resources that I could take back home and try and implement there in, like lower economically developed nations, and try and find a way so that, not just like the wealthy or like the rich can have access to like electricity and energy supply, so that to kind of like spread the wealth as well.
Mhm. That's really great insight. Brendan, or did you, or Ruth, did you have anything else? We can move on to the next question if you don't necessarily want to answer this one.
Um, I'm just gonna say something really cliche. Everyone heard about this, but like I came here because of the flexible curriculum. I didn't have to take anything that I did not want to take or did not align with my major. And I really like that. So I was like, let me just look up the school and I got in. So I was like, okay. And I just ran with it.
I had a very like similar experience to Brendan. Like, I did not know the University of Rochester like existed until probably like a month before the REMS deadline came up. And I just had like, the only way I found out about the college was I had this like, my guidance counselor gave me this book called The Complete Book of Colleges for American colleges, because I just didn't know any of them. And the University of Rochester seemed really nice. And I like that, like Brendan said, that it's open curriculum. You don't have to take class that you don't want to take. There's really only one class you have to take, and it's a writing class. And there's so many writing classes to choose from. So being pre-med and also getting the flexibility, the two of those don't really come in hand often. So I knew that this is where I wanted to be.
Ruth, do you mind saying like a little bit about the REM Scholar Program, just for the people that don't necessarily know about it?
Yeah, so REMS is the Rochester Early Medical Scholar Program, and basically it takes 10 students every year to be in their program. And the perks of the program are that you don't have to take the MCAT to get into the University of Rochester Medical School. As long as you maintain your GPA, you don't have the stress of not knowing where you're going to go to med school, which is kind of a huge deal. No MCAT, pretty big deal. So it's definitely a very attractive program. And because you don't have the stress of taking the MCAT, you have a lot more flexibility to kind of explore other degrees, other paths that you might want to do in undergrad that a lot of pre-med students don't have the chance to do.
I think there's just a couple of, just so people know or are aware of, for people that also come from charter schools in like the Rochester area, you could also apply to scholarship deadlines. Brendan is like nodding his head because you're from the area as well, just so people know. And those scholarship deadlines are coming up in December. I think there's also the Currents program. You have to apply to that. REMS, I think, is a similar situation. So just so students are like aware of being like, of these types of different opportunities that are available. And yes, REMS is such a big deal. So congratulations, Ruth. It's just like a handful of people that get, basically, you don't have to go to like apply to med school or things like along those lines. And then if you have any questions about those, you can also put those in the chat, because we do have the admissions people here to answer those more in depth. The second question, which I think like a lot of people will want to know more about, is what your experience has been being a person of color at the U of R, given all the different backgrounds you all are from and like the areas that you're from.
Personally, I already like knew it was gonna be some type of culture shock. I walked in, was like, I'm ready for it. Like, whatever you have, just throw it at me. And I don't know. It's just I feel like I've been around the right people, because we all understand within my friend group of the struggles of being a person of color. And with that, with being a person of color comes with problems, especially going to a PWI, and you'll have to like navigate your way together and basically stand ground and be vocal for what you want and not be overlooked by the majority, as you could say. So it's been okay. Still heading, trying to go to navigate, because I'm still a first year, so I don't know much. I don't have that much experience, but I'm still trying to get my way through.
Mm-hmm. I think we can also answer this question in conjunction with one of the earlier questions the panelists asked about whether the university was diverse, and whether like your experiences as a person of color makes you feel like there's like enough people that are like you when you like interact around campus as well.
Well, to add on a little bit more, DLH, that I had it my first week, I got dragged over there by my friend. She was like, "Oh, you need to go over here and talk to them. You need to talk to more black people. You need to get out your room." I'm like, whatever. So I did that, and like every time I walk by, there's someone like screaming, "Hey!" I'm like, "Who is this?" But I'm like, DLH, okay. And it's like once you find that group, a group of people that looks like you and understands the struggles, you'll be more grounded in a way. So I really respect DLH and people from DLH, specifically Sasha, the president, and Andre, the vice president of DLH. I really respect them for that.
And then just so everybody knows, the DLH stands for the Douglas Leadership House. It's like a house on campus that's like basically filled with like Black and brown students mostly. So I'm a 5th-year student, so there's a Take 5 program where you can be here for a 5th year. And like, I think everybody here has had the same experience being in DLH, where like the first thing is very loudly. Epiphany, do you want to give like a little brief rundown of DLH just because you were really enthusiastic earlier?
So it's not just filled with Black and brown students, it's filled with Black and brown leaders, which is the point of the house. So pretty much the whole point of the house is that we try to make as big of an impact on campus as possible while also providing a space for Black and brown students to be themselves, to be leaders, and just to be free. So I lived in that house last semester. I wish I lived there longer. Should have like moved in the moment I stepped into university. But we typically have lounge lessons, and what those lounge lessons are is that in a way it's a way to educate you in different aspects of Black and brown culture. So one could be about hair one day, next is about music, next is about how Black men are seen in society. So it's like different ways of educating us on how we're perceived in society. And we always try to do like certain things. So I know we have pillars. I could, Mackenzie, you could kill me later, but I think there's 5 pillars, right? Did I remember that correctly? I think it's 5. I think it's 5 pillars, and we
I've been there
4.
for a little bit.
Wait,
Yeah.
Ruth, how many is it?
I'm pretty sure there's just 4.
Oh, I was one
I
off.
believe so. Yes, there's 4.
Okay, so there's 4 pillars, and then each person in the house is dedicated to a certain pillar. So one could be about community and is dedicated to a certain person, and we try to do something for that. I know one year they kind of did a walk. Last year we had so many plans because of COVID, but it's a great opportunity. It's something to get involved with, just to be around Black leaders on campus. And literally, the moment they see you, they will start saying hi to you. Like I remember I came before, like the freshman before year, and I said one thing during a BSU meeting, and the guy remembered me after, and it was like months later. So please, 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 please talk to us, connect with us, because we will remember you. Somehow, some way, we will remember you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, obviously great space. Ruth, Brian, also Epiphany, if we want to go back to that main question of like what your experience has been being a person of color at the U of R. So we've like talked about like DLH being like a safe space for like a lot of students, especially including queer students of color, just so we can make it clear, like DLH has really expanded. So there was the Women's Club that was established my like sophomore year. So like for like queer and trans students of color that are also watching this, just know that like these are also issues that are discussed in the house. But yeah, going back to this question of like what it means to be a person of color, do we have any more additional thoughts on that? Because we can also move on.
Yeah, of course. Like I can like definitely even like kind of like dive sorry deeper into the being an international student and then coming here as well. So like I mean this is definitely like a very different like perspective. Like I've lived in Dar es Salaam for 18 years of my life. And when I came to the United States, it's like it's not the US that I see on TV. It's not like the fairy tale Disney US that you see on TV that like, they want you to see, So like when I came here, that was my perspective. That's what I thought it was going to be. And like, you come to the U of R and you start realizing that the people who look like you will take care of you. And those are always going to be the people who are going to stick by you. And I think for me, one thing that I really did appreciate was like, for example, I still remember this, but like me and like Talia were in the same like green energy class. in like our first year. And like there was literally like maybe like three of us or like four of us who used to like probably like sit together or like, you know, talk to each other about the class and stuff. And like for me, that was just like a breath of fresh air, you know, coming into like this. And like I didn't really have the opportunity to like maybe get so advanced within my studies like most people within the US education system, you know, because obviously that's like a different perspective from like my upbringing and a US upbringing. So like it was hard like getting through that class, but like, you know, just being with people that, you know, probably like understood the struggle a little bit was like great for me. So I really did appreciate that. I mean, and definitely I know Brendan mentioned this early on. It's like you come in like expecting it, but like, you know, I didn't really expect that. But then now it's like one thing that really helped me was that once I was done with my first year, going into my sophomore year, you know, you start expecting it. You're like, okay, this is gonna be like a new year. And I saw the things that came at me the first year. This is the same type of thing that's gonna come at me this year. And one more thing as well, like I really do appreciate the university staff. Um, they are like the nicest people on this campus. And I feel like for me, one thing that I want to like mention as well that has been like a big impact is finding other Swahili speakers within the university staff just by like rambling with my friends as I'm like passing by. And then you end up having connections that you have for the rest of your school year. Like I will go to like Douglas sometimes and I'll be like, I really need to see Mary. Where's Mary? Because like she's like dope because she speaks my language, you know? So it's like I want to talk to her, I want to get to like know her. Like, and that's the thing as well. It's like you really never know the people you meet up until you get here. And that's one thing that I really appreciate here as well. Like you always have a support system, regardless of how small like our demographic is.
Mhm. Absolutely. Um, Ruth, Epiphany, did you have more to add?
I would say, so I'm from Canada, so I'm not coming from a place where there's like a super strong, like lots of Black people. Like I'm very used to being like the only person in my class that looks like me. And so coming to University of Rochester, I remember the first thing that I noticed, I was like, there are so many Black people here. And I was so excited about that because I've just never really got that a chance to have that community sense in the sense of the word, except for like, you know, like maybe like church and stuff. But in terms of like school, I never really had that. And so when I came here, I was in, you know, freshman housing. I was the only Black girl on my floor. And I had heard about this DLH thing. And you know, I was kind of interested in going to go check it out, but you know, I didn't really know that many people that were going there initially, because again, I came here kind of by myself. And so I remember the day I decided to go over to TLH was when a girl asked me why I wear a shower cap instead of just like going to the she asked me why I always wear a shower cap in the shower. And like if I didn't want to get my hair wet, I just shouldn't shower every day. And that's when I said, I'm gonna go to DLH. I'm gonna go find some people that look like me and who understand me a little bit better because I can't be having this conversation with, I just can't. And so I went over to DLH and I just felt so relieved. I think that's like the experience I would say when I went in. I just saw a bunch of people in the lounge. Everybody's just laughing. There's something on the TV that's, you know, just for entertainment. People are, and then sometimes people bring up like a question from Twitter or like, you know, something, and then you have a great debate and it's intellectual and I thrived there. And so spring semester freshman year is when freshmen can move into the house. I was quick with that application. I said, I want to live here. I want to be a part of this. And then my sophomore year, I was the business manager. So DLH definitely was the place where I felt like I could be a person of color in peace and just enjoy my experience as a person of color without having to deal with a lot of ignorance. So yeah.
Ruth, I was also gonna ask kind of similar to like what I had asked Brian was what has your experience also been being like a Black pre-med student, especially are you like in predominantly like white classes and things like along those lines?
Yeah, I definitely like my friend group that I kind of hang out a lot with in the library are also like the other Black pre-med students because there really isn't a lot of us. I definitely do have experience of like kind of being, I know my freshman year I was the only Black girl in my no, there were two Black girls in my my biology class, but our professor always got us confused. Just the two of us. It was just, yeah. And in chemistry workshops, sometimes it felt like I wasn't being heard. So it can definitely be frustrating at times, but having a community that is supportive definitely helps you feel like you belong here. So yeah, I definitely say it can be challenging sometimes, but I think having a great support system like DLH, like the OMSA staff, like super helpful.
Absolutely. That kind of ties into our next question. Epiphany, do you have anything to add before I move on?
Yeah, just something small. So heavy on that shower cap one, like you, as a minority, you are going to get that question all the time. Like my roommate was like, why are you wearing a scarf? I'm like, so my hair doesn't get messed up. But I think visiting, like go to the OMSA office. Go to the OMSA office. You can ask Mr. Cruz, Dean Burnett. I was in there every day. Every day I was in there. Like I would just walk in, I would go straight to Mr. Cruz's room, like, you available? He's like, yeah, sit down. Like use your advisors, thank your advisors, appreciate your advisors, because they will always be there for you. Like I meet with Mr. Cruz probably like every other week and stuff like that to always make sure I'm on track, just telling him like random things. Like we'll come in, I was like, okay, let's talk about our classes. We'll finish talking about classes like 10 minutes later, and then an hour later, we're talking about like Harlem and music and history and stuff like that. Like make those connections. And it's so interesting sometimes, like being from New York City, is that I'll say things and no one will understand the word I'll say. Like I remember I went to the bathroom like in Sue B, and I came back and I told my roommate, I was like, why is everybody and their moms in the shower? And she was like, why would people bring their moms in the bathroom? And I'm like, no, that just means there's a lot of people in there. So like when you use slang, I'm telling you now, a lot of people are gonna be like, yo, what's dead ass? What's brick? It's like, oh, it's brick, yo. And it's like, please just stop. But it's kind of a funny experience, because it's just like, wow, that's kind of interesting that you think that way.
Yeah, I think those are all very good insights. And I think that's also a really good transition into this next question about like what resources has like been most helpful for you to like strive and succeed as a student. I think this is very important because many of you might be first generation students. Some of you might also be undocumented students. So I think it's very important that like you're aware of the types of resources that are available on campus so that you can, make it through as best as you can.
I'm gonna go first because so I think the very first resource that I was really happy to have, besides like when you're an HULP student, you kind of get exposed to like almost all the resources on campus because you're like a first gen low income student. Something I am very proud of. If you're a first gen low income student, do not be pressed. Be proud of that. I swear you. I remember one person told me, "Oh, I'm not gonna milk that title. Milk it. Milk that title." I swear, like seeing my mom go through college and struggle and even still succeed, but didn't like go all the way. I wanted to do that. I wanted to replicate that. And you having ECO was a blessing because you come in with friends and people and resources and you already know what to do. Like, the first thing I did when I got into campus is that I was like, I need a therapist. So I immediately went to UCC. And then I always went to OMSA like every single day to get advice on classes I should take, what I should be doing. I also applied for Kearns because I wanted another place to get resources. So Kearns, being a Kearns scholar is for low income students, and they have so many other programs like McNair, which is something I also want to do. But being able to use everything on campus to my advantage, because I know I did not come here on the same footing as like all the other white and Asian students, some of the Asian students. Like I came from a public school that was really poor, but you see where I am now. So I make sure I use every single resource. UCC is the University Counseling Center. OMSA, Office of Minority Students. Kearns is for low income students. I use everything. And I make sure I do. And it's so helpful to help me succeed. Like, especially after last semester with COVID, it was so hard to do work at home. And when I came here, I told Mr. Cruz, we setting up CEDO appointments, which is Center for Education, Teaching and Learning, if I said that correctly. So yeah, kind of. So CEDO, I make sure I schedule CEDO appointments every now and then. I always meet with Mr. Cruz to say, okay, am I on track? What should we do? Like, I make sure I use everything in my powers because the moment I know I slip, someone's going to catch me. That's it.
That was a really good response. I think especially with UCC, they have like a woman of color group, a men of color group, and then like a kind of like a general group for like queer and trans students of color, especially with regards to like racial trauma, which like, you know, everybody has probably like that's watching this has faced. So like, I think that's really important to emphasize. Brendan, Brian, Ruth, do you have more things to add? Ruth, there was a specific question for you regarding your experience as a pre-med student. It was, oh, I guess it went away.
Oh yeah, I just sent it. I just sent a response.
Oh, you did? Okay, okay, that also works. I don't know if you want to answer that live.
I mean, sure. The question was asking whether or not students of color have kind of an equal opportunity to research. And I personally think that they do. What I did to get into research was that I contacted the lab supervisors that I was like interested in joining their lab. Then I just like talked to them and asked them, I emailed them asking them, showing my interest in their lab and trying to sit down with them and see what they did. And of course, you know, lab supervisors would love to talk to like young students who are interested in the work that they spend hours doing. So I've never really been turned down from meeting with somebody. Whether or not they are able to accept you into lab, that's another conversation that you can like talk about more as you get to know them better. But in terms of like actually the opportunity to reach out, like there's no research lab that has hidden information about what they're doing or where they are. Like there's definitely websites you can go to and people to email. So
yeah. This is more like a little bit of a relaxed question, but what kind of activities are you all involved in campus? I know Brian said that he was president of the Pan-African Student Association. Ruth was former business manager of DLH. I don't know if there are other things that you all want to specifically add. Okay.
It's wild because I know all of y'all do a lot. So like, I need one of y'all to jump in and say something because I be seeing y'all everywhere. So let's go.
I talk too much. I'm gonna let everybody else go.
I don't want to call anyone out just because I feel like that might make anybody uncomfortable, but Epiphany did just last talk. So it comes down to
Yeah, like I mean, for me, like apart outside of pasta, like I try to go to like Nesby meetings, even though like my schedule is crazy. So I'm always taking like more than 21 credits or something like every semester. So like it's usually hard to like go, but I definitely just sign up for everything on like the newsletter. I'll be trying to keep up with a lot of like the MSAB organizations events. So I'll be popping face like on Zoom anytime if I have time. And I mean, outside of that, I do research with like the chemical engineering department. But yeah, I mean, I definitely try to stay busy. Definitely, I think I spend most of my time with like EBSAB orgs. But yeah, that's about it.
In terms of activities, I kind of jumped around a lot because I just wanted to find something that I really like to do. So I actually started off as freshman rep for NESB, which is interesting because I'm pre-med. So, but I loved NESB. It was super fun being freshman rep. I learned a lot about like business etiquette and stuff that you don't always get on the pre-med track. So professionalism and trying to further your career that was really helpful. I've been in Dalton's dance crew with Mackenzie. Mackenzie's actually my big. We've been in Indulgent, well, she's a year older than me, but I've been in Indulgent since freshman year. And so Indulgence is super fun. I love dancing. Something else, I guess both me and Epiphany are RAs in Southside. Epiphany actually lives the floor below me, 2 floors below me. So that's really fun. And yeah, I'm a research assistant at the Med Center. So between those, yeah, I keep pretty busy, but it's super fun.
All I have to say is y'all were so quiet, but you do so much. Like I was dead ass like, what? Thank you, Mackenzie, for calling them out.
I'm not really. I'm trying to slowly get out my shell and talk and like interact with more people. But right now, I am part of Queer Students of Color, and I also go to lounge meetings of lounge lessons for DLH. I attend those as much as I can. if I'm not asleep from work and everything else. But next semester, I'm going to try to push myself to be like a leader or have like a leadership role in a way. But right now, I'm just cooling.
Brendan, you're our youngest panelist here. So I was actually gonna ask if you had like anything you want to talk about with regards to COVID, or if like that has affected your experiences all with being your first year student.
Yes. Um, I would say like overall, I would speak in like general for the first years. I believe like the first years are like social butterflies now because they lost it. We lost our senior year, so they're just like trying to talk to any and everybody. So it's like I'd be just sitting there all alone eating, and our first year was just like, "Hello," and just like introduce themselves. I'm like, I'm eating. Like I just want like time to myself. But it was like I don't know. It's okay, but like academically, um, it's a little challenging because you have to teach yourself some things. Um, but it's not bad to ask for help. I ask for help a lot, and just use your resources around you, friends, professors, anything that's there. Just use it. It's no shame. There's no shame in the game, honestly.
As a whole, I think I would really encourage people, like even if you're not that social, to like join one of these groups, just because it's nice to have a mentor or something like along those lines on campus to help like navigate your way. And if you're like, because you would just be astonished the amount of resources that people are just like not aware of about like being on campus and what can help you succeed. I was actually going to ask Brian and Ruth, because you both were the upper class students here, what has allowed you with your time management skills, because you do all of these sorts of like things, and obviously you've made time to speak here today.
Yeah, so I feel like so the thing is, I don't want to like say that like it's like perfect time management, because you can never have perfect time management. Like it is so hard to keep on track of things. And I miss so many things sometimes. Sometimes I'll just like open my calendar and I'll be like, wow, this is happening right now. I should be there. So yeah, I think one thing though is that like if you're passionate about something, you will make time for it. You will always make time for the things that you personally enjoy and personally like. I personally have had experiences where like, you know, you don't go for things because, you know, you really don't think they're important to you, but they actually are. They're very important to you. And like, you really need to kind of like set aside that time and set aside the effort to actually go. Because, you know, one part of it is definitely like scheduling the time to do it. And then the other part is actually like being involved within the thing. So like, I feel like definitely one thing is I stay passionate about the things that like to do on campus and the things that I enjoy. So that's one thing that like really helps with like my time management.
Ruth, is there more stuff that you want to add on to that?
I would say, yeah, I do about the same. Google Calendar is my best friend. I literally schedule times to like nap and watch Netflix. So yeah, I would say very similar. Yeah.
I think an important thing to mention that Brian said is, I know like some people get like a lot of anxiety. Well, like one, there is like a limit with the amount of activities and stuff that people can do because you just don't have time for everything. But sometimes like you think that you don't have time. Like for example, me being on like MSAB or something like that, right? Like you're like, oh, I'm a super busy person. Like, why would I join this? But like the things that you love give you a lot of energy, and that's like kind of what you need to like keep yourself going. So it's really important that like people do join some level of extracurriculars, because like school can be your life, but even if it's your life, it's not going to help you like continue to drive. And I think that is like a very important point that Brian does make there. One of the last questions we have is, what is your, oh, we do have one question I do want to go back to. We did kind of talk about this, but it was, would you say that the U of R is very diverse? And I think this is an important question to answer as honestly, given how different people's backgrounds comes, whether it's from coming from like a white community, white spaces, to like a predominantly person of color community.
I think it's more diverse compared to other schools, like PWIs, if I had to be honest. Like when if some of you have visited schools and end up coming to U of R, you will definitely tell that U of R, like I think my other choice was St. Lawrence, and geez Louise, there's probably like 5% of Black people.
Mhm.
NYU ironically doesn't have a lot of minorities there either. It's just a lot of international students.
Mhm.
Most of them come from like Hawaii and stuff like that. So honestly, out of all the schools I visited and researched, U of R is probably one of the most diverse in comparison to other PWIs.
One thing I was gonna mention is the U of R isn't, it's, I don't know if it's majority white. I think it's like 50-50 because we have one of the biggest international populations of any university. So like, though like Black and Hispanic representation is like about like 10 to 15%, like I think 20 to 30% of students are international Chinese students. And then you have like different types, like obviously then you have like African students, which is like makes up the international population as well. So the school is not actually, I don't think like very majority white, though I think there's a lot of conglomerations, like the white people are like with white people. So like it's more hyper visibilized, I think, in a lot of spaces. Epiphany, I was gonna say, based off where you're coming from New York City though, was it hard to transition because of like the amount of like non-Black students that are on campus?
Yikes, that's a question. So being from Harlem, if people don't know what Harlem is like predominantly African American and Hispanic. If we consider, we are East Harlem is like Spanish Harlem, which is mainly dominated by Puerto Ricans. Um, it was, I think, surprisingly, I wasn't culturally shocked because in high school I did something called First Robotics, which stands for Inspiration and Recognition in Science and Technology, and that was like my first look into realizing that a predominantly white area. So a lot of times when I did networking, like whether it was through like Fast Track, I'm just naming New York City programs, or like First, there were so many white people. So in high school, I got that culture shock so that when I came to U of R, I was not very surprised. But there's a shock. It's like things like location shock because being from New York City and being from such a big city where it's extremely diverse and then coming here, I was just like, whoa, I am not used to this. I am not used to like having to walk everywhere. Like I like to take a train or a bus or like walk down the block and see a bodega, but it's not like that here. So in that regard, I was like really like, ooh, Rochester. Probably not for me because I'm just a big city girl. But New York City, I feel like Harlem over time has become really diverse. Um, just seeing pretty much different walks of life and seeing that in a way, there's a whole new modern Harlem Renaissance happening in Harlem. Like seeing that come back to life, and being able to know that I could come back home to that is reassuring. So if you are from a big city, you are definitely going to be like, wow, this is like so different than like where I live.
Mhm. That's really good insight. I also think Epiphany does make a really good point where like if you do look at like most universities, I think the U of R is like significantly more diverse if you compare it to, especially like for state and public institutions, unless it's like someplace like Howard or like possibly Berkeley. But that is something that I think a lot of students should keep in mind, where like though it might seem if you're coming from like an area that's predominantly of people of color, that's just higher institutions to a certain degree. Brendan, Brian, Ruth, I don't know if you have more to add with that based off, because you all are also from very different places.
Um, Coming from Rochester, I would say
Yeah.
that um, I went to a charter public school, and I had a lot of Black and brown students, and I never, we never, there was like literally one white student in our whole school, and we had like 300 people in our school. So it was just more like I didn't know how to, I'm, I did not know how to adjust, basically. I walked in, I'm looking for the Black people. But I have like my roommate who was African American. Yeah, I have him, and it feels like when I'm with him, it's like I'm okay. But when I go back outside, it's like, dang, a lot of white people outside. And I don't know, it's like I don't know. It's very shocking because it's like I got invited to play spike ball, and I asked them, "What is spike ball?" And they said, "I'm not culturally educated." I'm like, "What? What is spike ball?" And I don't know. It's just coming from like a low income school for the black people. It's just very different. You have to adjust very quickly, and if you don't, I don't know.
Mhm.
It was just very quick for me.
Brendan, thank you for that. That's actually like very good insight, and thank you for being honest about that. I do want to pay attention that we do only have 15 minutes left, so people have like last minute questions, they're welcome to roll them in. Brendan, I was gonna ask, given this, and like since like maybe like a lot of panelists might also have the same situation, what has helped you cope? Is it like things like DLH and like things like that to help you feel more comforted? Because like obviously, if you're first generation students, like you need, like, you know what I mean, like getting through college is really important. Do you have any advice for that?
Um, I say take it one day at a time and find people around you that will support you, like DLH. They support. I be telling them my story and like everything that like wanders my mind, and they actually like provide me support. And also seek counseling if you can. There's nothing wrong with it. Yeah.
I think that's really important. Epiphany also mentioned UCC. I really genuinely encourage everyone because there's 10 individual therapy sessions, but group sessions are free. And like, it's just like ways to cope, especially for students of color on campus and being in like white spaces or like non-Black spaces. Um, Brian, do you have anything to add, especially because you are an international student?
Yeah, definitely. For me, yeah, the high school I went to like a high school in my home city. It was like it was an international school, so like we had people from like in my class at least we had people represented in like maybe 10 different nations, spanning in like the world, and include not even 10 actually. We had people spanning from like 17 different nations. So it was like a really like great experience having people in like my class, and it was pretty small as well. So we had like 36 like people in my graduating class. So you know, I got to like know people from like, you know, different places. Like one of my good friends was actually from the US. And I mean, that's one thing that I used to do a lot was to bug him and ask him about the questions that like, you know, that about things that like I would possibly like, you know, experience when I came here, you know, because he was also like someone of color. And it really did like kind of help me like get like a little bit of an insight. But to be fair, like, you know, coming into the U of R, that's what really kind of like, that's the thing. I feel like I've been privileged my whole life to not be a minority within my nation. You know what I mean? And within like my schooling, to the point that when I came here and became like, you know, like I understood that, wow, this is like absolutely like something that I never really like experienced. But like right now, you definitely have to like adapt, and you really need to kind of like find the people that obviously like understand where you come from, and like, you know, the things that you guys share have to be in common. And like, you know, Brendan, when you say the spike ball thing, that was funny because it's like, you know, you start saying things or you start like mentioning things and people start saying that, oh, like, you know, your accent is funny, or like what you're saying is like different, where you from. And that's usually the first conversation that I have with so many people that I meet for the first time. And you start like having to like, for me as well, it's like I feel like I've seen like, for example, the way I speak has changed over the last 4 years because of that. Because you're definitely trying to like code switch so you can avoid that first, like, you know, small talk, like introductory like question, or where are you from. Because that's a very big explanation in itself. So I think that's one thing that I definitely had to like adjust into. And I really do appreciate like everybody like that I have in my circle, because it's really like a good time to know that, like, you know, everybody tries to make you feel like just a welcome. But definitely you will have situations where you definitely have to like explain yourself. And I feel like there's always this burden of us explaining ourselves. Like, you don't really have to do that. And like, I think that's one thing that I learned over time. And I really do appreciate that the people who actually like help me realize that.
Mhm. I think that was very insightful. With our last couple of minutes, I want to go to the very last question we have for today, which is, I'll check the chat really quick, but what is your advice for prospective students? So Brian, you gave like a lot of advice. I think we've been giving like lots of advice throughout the panel. Do you have any like concrete points that our viewers can like take away when they leave today for everybody?
Okay. Oh, all right. I guess I can go. I would say advice that I wish I had known is like you need to like learning your limits. I think is definitely something I like didn't really know when I first came here. And what I mean like learning your limits, like in terms of how it may relate to like feelings of imposter syndrome. I know my first year I had some pretty intense imposter syndrome. I always felt like, you know, I wasn't that smart, or I wasn't like doing well enough in my classes, or I wasn't doing enough activities, or, you know, because, you know, there's at college you meet so many different people and it feels like they're doing so much better than you. And so naturally you may feel like, oh, why did I even get in? Oh, you have all these doubts. And no one ever told me what imposter syndrome was until like the end of my freshman semester when I was like, oh, wait, what? This is something a lot of people feel. I thought I was really the only one out here struggling in all my classes and feeling like, not even just struggling, but just feeling like I'm not even supposed to be here. So I definitely wish I had known that. And in terms of learning your limits, when it comes to imposter syndrome, like knowing that you don't have to do everything, you don't have to major in everything. You don't even need to know what your major is. Like, it's okay to not know. And I think that was something I was kind of insecure about in freshman year, is the not exactly knowing what I wanted to do. So I would say, yeah.
I think that's really good advice. As a fifth-year student, I have to say that was one of my biggest things. And I think what I learned is that anyone, especially the white boys in your class, can like make themselves seem like they're like so like, you know what I mean? They'll be like, wow, like I know this and this and this, and let me flex all this vocabulary. And then like you'll think, like you'll literally like get like wrapped into it. You're like, wow, like I'm failing this class. I'm doing so bad. Like, how am I like doing this? And then you realize that like they're just talking shit. Like everyone is just talking shit at the end of the day. And that you can like describe yourself in the same way, but because of like how people of color are conditioned to constantly, like, you know what I mean? Like think that they're just not good enough. It's like you're not thinking that way. Like you're just not like, you haven't been raised in this environment and these conditions to realize that like you're so resilient. So I think that's a very important thing to realize, is that hopefully try not to let people get to you, and like be aware of imposter syndrome and how it predominantly affects people of color, especially women of color, queer people of color, because it's a very real thing, I have to say. I don't know if we want other people to chime in on this as well.
I think a piece of advice that one of the advisors from OMSA gave me, Anika, was that when you talk about yourself, never talk about your weaknesses first. It's okay to not be humble. Because I remember during my HELP interview, there was always that question of, what are your strengths? And every time a student always started with what they were weak at. Mm-hmm. And I remember Anika just saying, no, that's not what I asked. What are you strong at? Remember that you are strong at something. With the imposter syndrome, that is real. Like, I'm so lucky that I didn't really come in with imposter syndrome, because I already knew from the start coming to U of R, I did not start off on the same footing as majority of these students. I came from a public school, low income. My mother took care of us and her parents. Like, I was basically like, I knew I didn't come in on an equal footing, but it's the fact that I still came here as an HELP student, as a first generation student. I still managed to get here. Remember that it is okay. Milk that first generation title, milk that low income title, because at the end of the day, you are here because of your own merit, I wish my teachers told me that, because a lot of times they're going to tell you, oh, they don't care about you in college. You have to do everything by yourself. No, you don't always have to do everything by yourself. Like, when, as I said, like being an HOP student and going to OMSA every single day, I always knew someone was there caring about me. They were always worried about me. If I missed a meeting with Mr. Cruz, he already knew something was wrong. If I didn't talk, if I was silent one day, they already knew something was wrong. There are always people out here to help you. It's not, well, it is a dog eat dog world, but there are people who are willing to help you on this campus. You just gotta find it.
I think that's really strong and really great advice that Epiphany puts out. I was just gonna mention something really quick along those lines is also just that like the equal footing thing. Like you're gonna have professors, especially for students that may be pre-med, pre-engineering or things along those lines, and they won't get it. And I think that's important to recognize that a lot of this like value needs to come from yourself and like recognizing it through your support system as well, because like it's not well, like not everybody understands, I think, the struggles of like institutionalized racism in those conditions. So I think that's really important. Brian, Ruth, do you have any last minute things? And then we'll segue to Talia. If you don't, then that's like totally fine. Because we all did talk a lot. Okay, then I want to give a round of applause for our panelists. You all did such a fantastic, amazing job. Thank you for your time. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for everything and for being here. I'm gonna transition to Talia and then she'll just give some last minute things to talk about.
Yes, big thank you to our panelists. You all did great, and I hope you all in the audience were able to take some pointers. So now we'll just share with you all the contact information once again for us, all of our organizations that we represent, along with the contact information for the Office of Minority Student Affairs, the Office of Admissions, and the Office of Financial Aid. On the screen for right now. And just to touch a little bit on the question that was in the Q&A area. So there are a few things going on right now currently for educating the campus community, but right now, especially from the office, from the Dean of Diversity and Inclusion, they are working on a faculty training for diversity and inclusion. And there have been a few faculty members that have gone through the program so far. It has different benchmarks for them. So it's completely voluntary program right now, and we're getting updates from them as the faculty go through the training. And we have been in several conversations with administration on trying to figure out the best methods for educating the students on the college-wide thing. It's a big conversation because it has to be implemented into the coursework and everything. But there are different conferences on campus where they'll invite speakers to just talk about different issues that affect the African diaspora. So things are happening here, not always at a fast pace or at the same time, but things are in motion. Yes. Yes, so I can segue over to Joe Lattimore for final comments. Just want to thank you all again for coming, and Joe, you're up.
Talia, members of MSAB, on behalf of the Office of Admissions and our audience, thank you for participating in our annual MVP event. MSAB has been participating in MVP for a very long time, at least the 14 years that I've been organizing MVP in the Office of Admissions. Your presence is vital in allowing prospective students to learn more about the university experience for Black, Indigenous, people of color, and others. And your presence and all that you do is vital on campus. Dean Burnett and Mr. Cruz, thank you as well for supporting tonight's event. The Office of Minority Student Affairs, we know, is vital to the success of our underrepresented first-generation students. Prospective students, there are additional MVP events to consider. 2 more on Thursday and another early December. The one on Thursday includes a conversation with members of the Douglas Leadership House, a house you've heard so much about tonight. Those events can be found at the link provided by me in the chat. May we all continue to stay safe, and we wish all of our prospective students and our current students a successful academic year as we can, given the challenges faced by COVID-19 and our fight for racial justice. Having said all of that, I wish everyone a great night. Thank you once again for being with us, and wishing everyone the best. Thank you.